Welcome to Echo Forge, dark fantasy and sci-fi stories from the edges of forgotten worlds. If you enjoy this kind of storytelling, hit like, subscribe, and tap the bell so you don't miss the next vision. Now, let's step through the gate. The first thing they noticed was the silence. No hails, no targeting locks, no scramble of fighters. Just the dead mechanical breathing of a station that should have been bristling with guns. Final approach, Ibarra said, fingers gliding over the shuttle's hollow controls. Vector is clean. No response from the Axis station. Again. Maybe they're pretending to be dead, Gunn muttered from the rear bay, flexing his heavy rifle. Let us come close so they can ruin our day up close and personal. Station power at 9%, Kovac said. The engineer's voice was flat, eyes unreadable behind his visor's blue tint. Life support minimal, most systems in standby. I'm seeing strangled loops in the grid, like someone rerouted power in a hurry and then stopped halfway. Captain Reyes stood between them, armored hands clasped behind his back, helmet clamped under one arm. He stared at the looming form of the station on the forward display. A black wheel hanging over a gas giant the color of bruised bone. The station's spines, gun platforms, and habitat rings were unlit, just a handful of weak red status lights pulsing like a slow heartbeat. Ghost Lance, Reyes said over the squad channel. Final check. Breach kit, ammo, demo charges. Good to go, Gunn replied. Medgear prepped, stimulants topped up, Imani said. The medic's voice carried a warmth that didn't quite reach her eyes. Systems intrusion tools ready, Kovac added, assuming their net isn't a smoking ruin. Vale, the rookie, hesitated for half a second too long. Rifle, sidearm, drone, spare mags. Good to go, sir. Reyes finally sealed his helmet. Our intel says this is an Axis forward strike station. Crew of 300. Fighter wing of 60. They've been harassing our supply lines for months. Tonight we break them. Ibarra watched the black wheel grow larger until it filled the viewport. It didn't look like a predator. It looked abandoned. Docking collar aligned, she said. Mag clamps in 3, 2, 1. The shuttle shuddered as they latched onto the station's external airlock. The readouts flickered between languages, Alliance, Axis, and something else that looked like a proprietary research code Ibarra didn't recognize. Seal confirmed, Kovac said. Their lock's unresponsive. No handshake. So we knock, Gunn said, hefting the cutter. The Axis boarding hatch peeled open under the thermal lance with a sound like tearing bone. Beyond it was a dark corridor lit only by emergency strips of red, stretching away into shadow. Ghost Lance, we are committed, Reyes said quietly. Keep it tight. We find their command center, seize whatever intel we can, plant charges, and blow this place into the gas giant. Questions? No one had any. They moved in. The station's gravity was low, a gentle tug that made each step feel slightly too light, slightly too uncontrolled. The air tasted thin through their filters, like it had been recycled one too many times. Ibarra's audio feed picked up faint hums and distant groans. The creaks of stressed metal, coolant pumps struggling somewhere deep in the superstructure. Her helmet display painted the corridor in outlines and labels, thermal signatures, none ahead, motion, nothing that wasn't them, structural integrity, degraded in places, but still above collapse thresholds. The problem was the silence. A station this size should have been full of noise, footsteps, laughter, arguments, maintenance drones whining along rail tracks. Instead, only the station itself groaned and ticked, like an old ship cooling after re-entering atmosphere. "Where is everybody?" Vale whispered. "Maybe they went out for a smoke," Gunn said. "Whole crew, all 300. Very bad for morale." "Keep chatter relevant," Reyes said, but there wasn't much conviction in it. The first sign that something had gone wrong came 20 meters from the docking collar. A wall panel had been ripped open, ugly and jagged, as if someone had hacked at it with tools until their hands slipped. Bundles of power conduits and data cables bulged out. Some of them had been cleanly cut and re-spliced, others simply torn free. Dark stains pooled beneath the mess, baked onto the deck plating. "Blood?" Imani asked, stepping closer. "Mostly," she answered herself a second later, scanning. "Human hemoglobin traces. Also, something else. Protein structures I don't recognize." "Axis biotech," Kovac suggested. "Maybe." They moved on. They found more broken panels, more mess, drag marks, bullet impacts clustered around doorways and intersections, the pattern of panicked firefights. Ibarra's HUD outlined shell casings on the floor, standard Axis rifles, Alliance hardware, something heavier. Signs of battle, signs of chaos. No bodies. No scorch where someone had cleaned up. No ash. No slag where a vent to space had opened. Just the absence of people, like someone had selected crew from a menu and deleted it. "Something's wrong with the geometry," Kovac said, after a while. He'd been silent, eyes flicking between his wrist console and the station walls. "The schematics we had from command, they're not matching. We should have hit a central hub by now. Instead, we're looping around the outer ring." "Maybe intel was bad," Reyes said. Kovac shook his head. "They're not just wrong. They've been overwritten. Look." He projected a small hollow in the air. The station's layout, what Global Command had called an Axis forward strike platform, appeared, a clear ring with branching modules. Then, line by line, new data scrolled over it, coming live from his local scans. Rooms in different places. Corridors that should have been storage now labeled LAB. A whole central spindle labeled with an unfamiliar icon. A stylized coiled shape like a spiral of teeth. "The station's ID in the core systems isn't a strike platform designation," he added. "It's OPHIUCHUS Research Array." Ibarra frowned. "OPHIUCHUS. That's not Axis." "Classified Alliance project," Reyes said slowly. "Deep black. Even my clearance only ever saw the code name." "So this was never an enemy station," Imani said. "It was ours." Gunn grunted. "Our side really needs to start telling us things before we walk into them." Reyes was silent for 3 long heartbeats. "Mission parameters are updated. This is a compromise-friendly asset, masquerading as an Axis station. Hostile nature remains unchanged. Objective stands. Secure intel. Ensure enemy cannot exploit it, then deny the asset. Understood?" They all answered, but the words felt thinner now. The station groaned quietly around them, metal bones shifting in the dark. The first strange thing happened in a junction marked Hab Ring/Central Spindle. "Hold," Reyes said, fist up. "Ibarra?" "I'm seeing something," she said. Her sensor suite showed a faint thermal echo around the corner, like a human-sized smear of warmth. "Body heat, 50 meters, moving slow. Could be a survivor." "About time." Gunn's grip tightened on his rifle. I was starting to get creeped out. "Friendly IFF?" Reyes asked. "Negative," Ibarra said. "No transponder." Reyes nodded. "Form on me. Vale, rear. Kovac, stay close." They advanced, weapons ready, stepping over fallen tools and dropped datapads. The walls here were dented, scratched. Handprints grimed the pale panels, some in simple grease, some a darker brown-red. The junction opened into a wider hub, with corridors radiating out like spokes. The hub's center was dominated by a cracked holotable, its projection flickering between station status displays and noise. A half-dozen personal items lay scattered on it. Cups, a jacket, a small plush toy with its head torn off. Contact was here, Ibarra said. Her HUD painted the area in cool blues and yellows. Residual heat, less than a minute old. Something stood right here. Where is it now? Vale asked. Ibarra scanned. I don't know. It's like the signature just thinned out, dissipated. Gunn swept his weapon across the connecting corridors. Maybe they ducked into one of... Something moved, fast, at the edge of Ibarra's vision. She snapped her rifle toward it. Left corridor, movement. But the corridor was empty. Just the breathing dark and the slow pulse of red emergency lights. I saw it too, Vale said quietly. Like someone leaning back into a doorway. Thermal, Reyes asked. Ibarra checked. Nothing. Could be cloaking, Kovac suggested. Optical and thermal refractors. Tech like that exists on paper. Or, Gunn said, could be we're seeing ghosts. Shut it, Reyes said too quickly. Eyes open. We push toward the central spindle. That's where they're routing power. That's where we'll find the answer. As they moved out, Ibarra let her gaze linger a fraction of a second too long on the far corridor. For that heartbeat, she swore she saw a figure standing there. A tall, thin silhouette, head tilted, arms hanging a little too long. Her HUD tagged nothing. The figure did not show up in infrared, LiDAR, or motion. Then the emergency light pulsed, and the corridor was empty again. She told herself she was tired. That long burns through enemy space and blood chemistry tweaks would mess with anyone's head. They continued inward. The central spindle of the station was a vast shaft running from the outer ring down toward the core, lined with elevators and maintenance ladders. Here, the emergency lights gave way to a sickly green glow seeping from panels that looked wrong. The surfaces had softened, buckled, as if something underneath was swelling. Smells off, Imani said quietly, even through the filters. I'm reading elevated ammonia, trace organics, Kovac said. And, yeah, that's not right. He pointed up. A section of the shaft wall had peeled back, a crescent of torn metal curling outward. Beyond it, the metal had turned into something like chitin, something like scar tissue. Veins of glossy black ran like roots through it, pulsing faintly. What the hell? Vale whispered. Ibarra's HUD struggled to classify it. The overlay flickered between material unknown and error, as though the system couldn't decide if it was alive or not. Bioengineered hull plating, Gunn suggested. Maybe this was always here. Secret research, remember? No, Kovac said. For the first time, there was real unease in his voice. Look at the weld lines. This is fused onto the original frame. It wasn't built like this. It grew. Reyes stared at the pulsing veins. We find the command deck. We find out what they woke up here. They found the command deck sealed behind 3 blast doors, each sequentially overridden by Kovac. Inside the room was a chaos of broken displays, flickering hollow projectors, and overturned chairs. Banks of consoles flickered with error messages in multiple languages. The big forward viewport had been covered from the inside with dull, blackened plates. Why block the view? Vale asked. Maybe they didn't like what they saw, Gunn said. Fan out, Reyes ordered. Imani, check any logs. Kovac, with her. Ibarra, Gunn, Vale, cover. Imani slid into a working seat, fingers skimming over cracked keys and half-burned bandwidth controls. Most of the network is slag, she said, but the command core is isolated, here. Encrypted, but friendly protocols. I can brute force it. Prioritize security logs, medical, and research, Reyes said. I want to know what they were doing and why it went this wrong. As data flickered up, 4 hollow windows sprang to life, each showing a different camera angle. Ibarra watched over Imani's shoulder. First, a lab, sterile white, scientists in grey Alliance jumpsuits moving between containment tanks, each tank holding something wrapped in opaque coolant mist. Second, a cargo bay where crates with axis markings were being opened under armed guard. Third, the station's docking ring, crowded with people in environmental gear, shouting, rushing, shoving. Some were bleeding, some were vomiting. Fourth, a corridor not unlike the one outside. At the far end of it, a door bulged outward, its metal skin rippling like something was pressing from the other side. Audio hissed in and out as Imani scrubbed through the timelines. The recorded voices were distorted, but fragments came through. Containment breach in Lab 3. It's not a pathogen. It's... Stop looking at it. The pattern, it gets into your... Burn it all, seal the spindle. We can't let it reach... The fourth feed stuttered. The bulging door tore open in a spray of metal fragments. Something flowed out. At first a mass of black threads, then shapes resolving out of them. Ibarra saw human faces. Too many eyes. A mouth opening the wrong way. Imani killed the audio as the screaming started. Jesus, Gunn muttered. Vale swallowed audibly. Kovac pulled up a text log over the frozen video. OPHIUCHUS primary log, Dr. Leon Torres. Subject, contact, stage 3. The lifeform is not a single organism. It is a pattern that rewrites matter around it, beginning with neural tissue. Infection presents as visual obsession, followed by progressive motor disruption, and eventually, full reconfiguration. The host is not replaced, but repurposed. The resulting structure serves the pattern's drive to propagate, infiltrate, and adapt. Conventional biocontainment failed the moment we exposed unshielded human minds to the core sample. He scrolled further. Axis convoy raided on schedule. They took the bait, the captured research station. Communication blackout successful. Initial infection of enemy boarding parties proceeds rapidly. Host display enhanced aggression, coordination, and resistance to damage. However, an unexpected secondary vector has manifested. The pattern appears able to migrate along sensor pathways, embedding in visual feeds. Imani cut the log with a stab of her finger. We're watching this on our feeds, she said flatly. A quiet, raw silence spread through the room. Ibarra's heartbeat thudded in her ears. Their helmets were all live, HUDs all lit, external cameras all active. For the last hour, they had been staring at everything the station chose to show them. Shut down non-essential visual feeds, Reyes ordered sharply. Kovac, kill external cameras. Go to LiDAR and motion only. Static maps, now. Kovac complied, jaw clenched. Ibarra's view flickered. The world became simpler. Wireframe outlines of walls, heat signatures as abstract blotches, names over comrades' heads. No color, no detail. The pulsing veins in the hull vanished into generic, unknown material labels. Is that enough? Vale asked. No idea, Kovac said. But it's better than doing nothing. Imani's voice was tight. Torres says the infected start seeing things that aren't there. The pattern uses familiarity, faces, voices. It lures you where it wants you. Then it repurposes you. So the empty station, Gunn said slowly, isn't empty. Correct, Reyes said. They're still here, just changed. A faint thud echoed somewhere deep in the station. Then another, closer. Something heavy was moving. Captain, Ibarra said quietly, we've achieved our objective. We know what this place is, and we know we don't want it falling into Axis hands. Suggest we plant the charges and leave. Now. For once I agree with the gun nut, Gunn said. Reyes didn't hesitate long. Agreed. Kovac, set a remote overload on the reactor. If that fails, we fall back on demo charges. I want this place turned into plasma. Move. Kovac worked quickly, fingers flying over fragmented interfaces. I can rig an overload, he said after a moment. But control is partially compromised. Something else has permissions. I'll need a manual trigger at the reactor core. Define something else, Vale said. Whatever's living in the system now. Reyes nodded. Fine. We fight our way to the reactor, trigger the overload, double time it back to the shuttle. The station groaned again, louder this time. The floor vibrated under their boots. But we hurry, Reyes added, because whatever it is knows we're here. They didn't reach the elevator. Something hit them in the central spindle hub. Ibarra felt it before she saw it. An itch along her neural link, a static buzz across her HUD. The wireframe corridor ahead glitched, walls bending inward by a few degrees, floor lines misaligning. Interference, she asked. Local field spike, Kovac said. EM, gravitic. Deh. The walls bloomed. Shapes extruded from the metal, unfolding like grotesque flowers. Limbs, elongated and jointed wrong, burst from the panels. Faces stretched out of the bulkheads, eyes opening along seams, mouths yawning where no mouths should be. Contact front, Gunn roared. The corridor filled with motion. The creatures that pulled themselves free were patchwork things, human torsos embedded in walls of twisted chitin, arms ending in blade-like protrusions. Some crawled along the ceiling with too many limbs. Others scuttled on all fours, rib cages open like cages, something black and wet writhing within. Their thermal signatures were a mess, hot and cold in the wrong places, pulsing like corrupted files. But they were solid enough when they hit. Gunn's heavy rifle spoke first, hammering a creature in the chest. Chunks of matter flew. Flesh, hardened resin, shattering like glass. The thing screamed with half a dozen mouths. Ibarra fell into the rhythm she knew. Controlled bursts, target acquisition, prioritizing threats. Her round severed limbs shredded knotty growths where she guessed their central nervous systems clustered. A creature's head, too smooth, featureless, popped under her fire, spraying a cloud of glittering particles that stuck to everything. Don't breathe that, Imani shouted. On filters, Reyes snapped. Keep moving. Don't let them box us in. The things were fast. Too fast for something that looked like it had been hammered together out of spare parts. One dropped from the ceiling onto Vale, claws tearing at his shoulder, teeth trying to find purchase on his helmet. Vale screamed high and raw. He fired blindly upward, the shots punching ragged holes through the creature's midsection. It didn't seem to notice until Gunn grabbed it by what passed for a spine and hurled it back down the corridor, then riddled it with fire until it twitched itself to stillness. Vale, status, Ibarra shouted. I'm okay, he panted. Armor took it. I'm okay. Negative, Imani said. You're bleeding. Scratches, he insisted. Ibarra saw the red leak on his shoulder read out. Just a thin trickle. Nothing that should be life-threatening. But she also saw something else. A flicker in his biometric feed. A spike. Then a shiver, like an echo in his heartbeat. They fought their way backward, step by step, leaving shredded, twitching masses in their wake. The station itself seemed to writhe around them. Panels flexed, seams opening and closing like gills. The floor's grip changed with each step, sometimes slick, sometimes too soft. Grenade, Reyes shouted. Gunn tossed a smart charge down the corridor. It latched onto a wall, beeped once, then detonated in a tight cone of white-hot fire. The blast vaporized flesh and metal alike, momentarily clearing the path. They ran. They barricaded themselves in what had once been a mess hall. Tables were overturned, bolted-down benches ripped free and jammed against doors. Ibarra's HUD showed no immediate thermal signatures outside, but she trusted that little less with every passing minute. Vale sat with his back against a vending machine, clutching his shoulder. Imani's hands were quick and precise as she cut away shredded armor, sprayed sealant, and folded a self-adapting bandage over the torn flesh. "I told you I'm fine," he muttered. "You're alive because the creature's claws didn't reach exposed skin," Imani said. "That doesn't mean you're fine." "Any sign of infection?" Reyes asked. Imani's lips pressed thin. "I don't know what infection looks like, Captain. This is not a nanovirus or a parasite I can scan for. If the pattern can propagate along visual and neural channels, a scratch might not even matter. We've all been staring at this place." The room felt smaller suddenly. Kovac had his back to a wall, fiddling with a hand terminal. "Reactors showing rising activity," he said. "Not from my override. The entity, whatever it is playing with the power grid. It's moving energy toward the outer hull. Maybe trying to broadcast." "Can it leave the station?" Ibarra asked. "Torres' notes implied it's bound to matter it's reshaped," Kovac said. "But if it can write a transmission, a pattern in a signal, I wouldn't bet my life on it staying local." "Too late," Gunn said. "We already bet those." Reyes took a breath, let it out slow. "New plan. We're not just denying this asset, we're erasing it. We reach the reactor, trigger a full annihilation. Core burn hot enough to reduce every atom of this thing to plasma. Then we ride the shockwave out, or we die trying." "Sounds like a plan Gunn would make," Imani said. "Hey," Gunn protested. "I've never suggested riding a shockwave. Yet." Reyes's gaze slid to Vale. "Can you still fight?" "Sir." Vale looked up, startled. His face was pale, a sheen of sweat on his brow, but his eyes were clear. "Yes, of course." Ibarra saw it then. A slight jitter in his movement, like his limbs were half a beat out of sync with the rest of him. Her HUD flagged a micro-tremor in his left hand. "Captain," she said quietly, switching to a tight beam channel to Reyes alone. "Vale's readings are off. He's showing early neuro irregularities." "We don't have time to run a clinical," Reyes replied, his voice low. "We need every gun. You want me to shoot him now, on a maybe?" "No," Ibarra said. "I'm just saying, we watch him." Reyes' eyes were hard behind his visor. "We watch all of us." The route to the reactor core was shorter than the one from the docking ring, but it felt longer. The station was more alive here. Bulges in the ceiling throbbed in time with a distant rumble. Occasionally, something shifted just out of sight, heavy movements reverberating through the structure. Kovacs navigated by dead reckoning and fragments of corrupted maps. Several times, they found entire corridors sealed off by grown-in structures, rib-like arches fused together. Once, they passed a viewing port that hadn't been sealed. It looked out over the gas giant below, swirling pale storms lit from within by lightning. For a moment, the view seemed to ripple, the storm patterns aligning into an intricate spiral. Lines and curves creating an impossible shape that strained at the edges of comprehension. Ibarra flinched away, forcing her gaze back to the wireframe overlay. "Did you see that?" she asked. "No," Gunn said. "And if we did, we're pretending we didn't." "Eyes on the path," Reyes said. "Don't give it an opening." They reached a heavy blast door marked Reactor Access. Unlike the others, this one looked untouched. No claw marks, no growths. "Maybe it doesn't like the heat," Gunn suggested. "Or maybe it's waiting inside," Vale said. Kovacs hacked the control panel, bypassed a series of corrupted safety interlocks, and forced the door open. Hot air washed over them, prickling their skin through the armor. The reactor chamber beyond was a towering cathedral of machinery, centered on a humming core of contained fusion. Patterns of light crawled over the containment field, sharp lines shifting into arcs and back again. Ibarra didn't look too closely. "Talk to me, Kovacs," Reyes said. "This is doable," Kovacs replied, moving toward a side console. "The entity has partial control, but it seems wary of destabilizing the core. It needs the station intact. We don't." He began to input commands, fingers flitting over manual controls when the holo refused to cooperate. "I can ramp up the reaction, collapse the containment, and direct the failure inward. It'll turn this entire structure into expanding plasma in under 60 seconds. How do we not die?" Gunn asked. "We run," Kovacs said simply. "And we hope the pattern's ties to the station structure slow its ability to interfere." Something shivered overhead. Ibarra looked up. Shapes were clinging to the reactor's gantries. Not quite humanoid, not quite insectoid. They hung like wasp nests, bundles of limbs curled around cores of pulsing black. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds. Their heat signatures were faint, like they were sleeping. "Ah," Gunn said softly. "Kovacs, maybe hurry." Kovacs' hands moved faster. One of the hanging things opened, petals of flesh peeling back. A face emerged from within, human, recognizable. A woman in an Alliance jumpsuit, or what was left of it. Her eyes were entirely black, glossy. Her mouth opened, and a chorus of voices came out. "Don't," they said. "It hurts when you burn us." Ibarra swallowed hard. "Imani." Imani's voice trembled. Vitals from those pods show conscious neural activity. They're alive in some sense. More pods opened. More faces emerged. Station crew, Axis soldiers, people half transformed. Their mouths all moved in sync, the voices overlapping into a layered, echoing sound. "We were trying to control it," they said. "We were trying to use it. Your Alliance, you're ours. Why hurt us?" "You're not them anymore," Reyes said. The nearest face smiled, the skin around it cracked. Beneath the human features, something black and many-eyed writhed. "We can be anything. We can be you. We already are you. Remember the corridor? The figure you saw? The whispers over comms? That was us, saying hello." Vale staggered, clutching his helmet. "Stop. Talking in my head," he gasped. Ibarra's HUD screamed alerts. Vale's brain activity was spiking in impossible patterns. "Captain, Imani said urgently. He's compromised. Neurological signatures match Torres's described infection patterns. Vale lifted his rifle. For a sick second, Ibarra thought he was aiming at them. He fired upward instead, screaming wordlessly as his shots tore into the nearest pods. Flesh and chitin exploded. Black fluid rained, sizzling where it hit metal. The chorus shifted tone. "Rude," it said. The reactor chamber exploded into chaos. Pods uncurled, things dropping from the heights like horrid fruit. They hit the catwalks and floor in a rain of limbs. Some burst open on impact, unleashing swarms of scuttling things. Others simply reoriented and began to crawl, too many joints bending in too many directions. Gunn unleashed a storm of fire. Ibarra joined him, targeting clusters, trying to carve a path clear enough to retreat. Imani went to drag Vale backward, but he jerked away, eyes unfocused. "It's showing me," he whispered. "So beautiful. All the patterns. We're so small, Captain. Why are we fighting?" "Vale," Reyes shouted. "Look at me. That's not your voice." Vale's visor turned toward him. For a moment, Ibarra saw the kid she'd shared cramped barracks with. Too earnest, too young for what they did. Then his eyes went black. The shot that hit Reyes took him in the chest. Armor locked, absorbing most of the impact, but the force staggered him toward the reactor's edge. Ibarra didn't remember deciding to fire. One moment Vale was raising his rifle again, and the next there was a hole in his helmet. Something dark and glittering leaked out, evaporating before it hit the floor. His body crumpled, twitching once before it went still. "Captain," Imani shouted. Reyes pushed himself back from the edge, armor sparking where the round had struck. "I'm good," he grunted. "Ibarra. Good shot." She didn't feel like it had been a good anything. "Kovac!" Reyes roared over the cacophony. "Do we have our overload?" Kovac was hunched over the console, ignoring a spray of viscous fluid on his shoulder. "Almost. I'm breaking the safeties." A creature hit him from the side, all limbs and teeth. It pinned him to the console, claws digging into his armor, trying to pry him open. Imani lunged, driving her combat blade into what passed for its neck. The creature gave a wet, static-laced scream and thrashed, nearly taking them both over the railing. Gunn grabbed Imani's harness and hauled her back as Ibarra riddled the creature's core with fire. Kovac slumped, breathing hard. "It's done," he gasped. "Core overload in 60 seconds. No abort path. We need to leave." "Ghost Lance, fall back," Reyes shouted. "Ibarra, gun, suppressive fire. Imani, Kovac, move." The pattern's voice followed them as they ran, echoing through the chamber, swelling until it seemed to vibrate in their bones. "You burn us now," it said. "But you've already seen us, already carried us. We're in your images, your recordings, your memories. Every time you think of us, we grow." "Then I'll stop thinking about you," Gunn shouted back, firing blindly over his shoulder. "That won't help," it said, almost kindly. "You're very simple machines, really." The dash back to the docking ring was a blur of gunfire, screaming metal, and sprinting on legs that felt too light. Creatures surged from walls and ceilings, their forms more chaotic now, less human. The pattern was shedding the pretenses it had grown to lure them, revealing something raw and frantic underneath. A colony of frantic structures desperate to stop the destruction bearing down on them. Ibarra's world narrowed to a tunnel. Reyes' icon ahead, guns bulked to one side, Imani and Kovac's vital signs flickering in the corner of her HUD. The timer in her visor counted down in harsh white numbers. 40 seconds, 30. They hit a junction choked with growths, the path ahead entirely blocked by fused ribs of bone metal. Alternate route, Reyes demanded. Nothing that doesn't add 2 minutes, Kovac said. We won't make it. Gunn stepped forward, slapping a shaped charge onto the blockage. We make our own route. Back up. They ducked behind an intersection as the charge went off. The grown structure shrieked, a sound felt more than heard, as it shattered, chunks raining down. They scrambled through the gap, boots slipping on wet, yielding matter. 20 seconds. Almost there, Ibarra shouted. The docking ring looked wrong when they reached it. The shuttle was there, mag clamped to the exterior lock. But the lock itself had changed. The metal had rippled and bulged, forming a ring of teeth-like protrusions around the hatch. Black growths had spread from the station into the shuttle's collars, like ivy. It's already trying to take our ship, Imani said. Then we undock as we blow it, Reyes replied. Gunn, cut that crap off the collars. Kovac, prep for emergency launch. Imani, on him. Ibarra, cover. Creatures poured into the docking ring, drawn by the motion, the heat, the rush of adrenaline like a scent. Ibarra emptied a magazine, reloaded, emptied another. Her rifle barrel glowed faintly in her HUD. Beside her, Reyes fought with the cold precision of a man who had accepted his own death the moment he signed up and was now only negotiating the terms. 5 seconds, Kovac yelled. Get inside, Reyes ordered. Gunn and Imani dove through the hatch. Kovac followed, pausing only long enough to slap an emergency override on the docking clamps. The shuttle lurched as the station tried to hold onto it. Ibarra, go, Reyes shouted. She hesitated. He was between her and the hatch, firing down the corridor, body a solid wall. Captain. Move, Lieutenant. That's an order. She obeyed. Inside the shuttle, she turned, reaching back for him. For a heartbeat, she saw him in the docking ring, framed by the warped metal, still firing, still holding the line. Behind him, the corridor seethed. Then the world went white. She woke to the sound of alarms. The shuttle's interior was bathed in red strobe light. The air was thick with the scent of burnt insulation. Somewhere, a warning klaxon was giving up the ghost in a series of pitiful wheezes. Ibarra, a voice said. Hey, Lieutenant, with me. She blinked until Gunn's face resolved above her. His helmet was off, his skin pale and slick with sweat, but his eyes were very much alive. Status, she croaked. Alive somehow, he said. You, me, Kovac, and the doc, the captain. His sentence trailed off. Ibarra closed her eyes. In the darkness, for an awful second, she saw Reyes framed in that hatch again. The image froze, then started to change. Lines of the bulkhead bent, his limbs stretching, turning into something else. She forced her eyes open again. Station? She asked. Gone, Kovac said from the pilot's seat. The reactor overloaded exactly like I told it to. I've never seen a detonation pattern that clean. It erased the station. There's a plume of ionized gas where it used to be. Outside the forward viewport, the gas giant loomed, storms churning. A faint smear of light marked where the station had been, already dispersing. We're in a decaying orbit, Kovac continued. Navigation is responsive, but I'm not getting any long-range comms through the interference. Might be temporary, might be permanent. Could use a few hours to patch systems. Do we have a few hours? Imani asked quietly. Gunn looked at Ibarra. Ibarra understood why. How long was I out? She asked. Minutes, Imani said. Maybe 10. Plenty of time, the pattern's voice whispered in her memory. She shivered. Imani's gaze flicked between them. "We've all been exposed," she said. "We saw the station. We heard it. We felt it. Even if the core burn destroyed its physical substrate, it told us what it was. It showed us its structure. If it can exist as a pattern in neural tissue, then we brought it with us," Kovac finished. The silence in the cabin was different from the station's silence. This was alive, waiting. "We don't know that," Gunn said. "Torres could have been wrong about half of it, or all of it. Hell, maybe this is just trauma talking." Ibarra realized her hands were shaking. She stared at the patterns of the diagnostic displays, the lines of readouts, the swirling storms of the gas giant beyond the glass. For a heartbeat, they seemed to align, to click into place in a way that made a terrible kind of sense. She blinked hard, and it was gone. Or she thought it was. "Okay," she said softly. "Say it's in us. Say we're infected." No one interrupted. "Then either it needs time to do whatever it does, or it's already done it," she continued. "If the first, maybe we can beat it. Cut it out, burn it out, scramble it before it scrambles us. If the second, then there's nothing to do." "There's a third option," Kovac said quietly, not looking at them. His fingers hovered over the controls. "We take a hard burn into the gas giant, vaporize ourselves before we become another OPHIUCHUS." Gunn swore under his breath. Imani's jaw clenched. "I didn't sign up to kill my own squad." "You signed up to contain threats to the Alliance," Kovac said. "What we saw was a threat, on a level we barely understand." Ibarra thought of Vale's eyes going black, of the voices in the reactor chamber, pleading and curious and hungry, of Torres's logs, of Reyes ordering her to move. She unbuckled herself, standing on unsteady legs. She walked to the forward viewport and rested one gloved hand against the glass. Below them, the gas giant churned, endless and indifferent. "I don't know if it's in us," she said finally. "And I don't know if burning ourselves will stop it, even if it is. If it can write signals, it might have already left that station long before we got there. It might be in any sensor log that ever looked at it." "Comforting," Gunn muttered. "But I do know this," she said. "If we go down there, we disappear. No warning, no data, no chance for anyone else to learn from what happened. We die in the dark and the thing, whatever it is, stays a rumor." She turned back to them. "I'd rather take the chance we're not infected, or that we can be studied and maybe help someone figure out how to fight it. I'd rather risk that we are walking bombs, if there's even a slim chance those bombs lead to a defense." Kovac finally looked up. "You want to bring this thing home?" "I want to bring the truth home," she said. "If Command decides we're too dangerous, they can space us then. But at least they'll know why." Imani exhaled slowly. "As your medic, I should probably recommend we isolate ourselves and pray. As your friend, I'm with you." Gunn shrugged, a clumsy gesture in armor. "I don't like dying without shooting at least one more thing that deserves it. Heading home gives me better odds." All eyes went to Kovac. He stared at the swirling storms outside for a long moment. "Fine," he said at last. "We do it your way. I'll try to keep the comms narrow beam, low bandwidth, minimized image transmission. If this thing writes patterns, maybe text is safer than visuals." "Maybe," Ibarra said. She sat back down, strapping in again. Her hands still shook, but a purpose steadied her. As Kovac adjusted the controls, the shuttle's thrusters flared, nudging them away from the gas giant, out toward the cold, star-pricked dark. Ibarra watched the shrinking smear of light where the station had died. For a moment, as the shuttle rotated, The stars beyond seemed to draw together into a spiral, lines of constellations bending into a familiar, impossible shape. Her breath caught. Then the display flickered, and it was gone. She wasn't sure if the flicker had been in the shuttle systems or behind her eyes. "Ibarra." Imani's voice was soft. "You okay?" "Yeah," she lied. "Just thinking." The shuttle burned for home. Behind her visor, somewhere in the echo of the station's silence, something new and delicate unfurled in the folds of her memory, tracing itself along the patterns of her thoughts with patient, inhuman curiosity. It had all the time in the universe. After all, it had learned one important thing tonight. In the void, the easiest way off a dying station wasn't through wires or signals. It was through the people who walked away. Thanks for watching Echo Forge. If this story resonated with you, leave a comment, hit like, and subscribe so the next tale finds you. Share this with someone who loves dark fantasy or twisted sci-fi, and I'll see you in the next world.